Hello, Year 4. It seems that Miranda's taken a real liking to Pip. She had the choice of freedom and she went straight after him. So let's see what happens in chapter 56. That night, the White Swan was packed. Whenever the door opened, people turned to see who had arrived. But when a thin man in smart clothes came through the door, no one waved, shouted, or called for a beer to be poured for their friend. Instead, several actors went pale, and several more turned their faces to the wall, trying to hide. They all knew the Weasel. Not just because he was a notorious thief and bully. No, many of them had a much more intimate knowledge of his business. They had borrowed money from him, which was why none of them wanted to be seen by him. When the Weasel opened his mouth and shouted a name across the pub, all of them breathed a sigh of relief and turned back to their conversations. All except one. "Eccles!" shouted the Weasel. "Eccles!" When William Eccles heard his name being shouted across the White Swan, he stood absolutely still for a second, rigid with panic. Then he thrust his beer into a friend's hand and rushed towards the back door, pushing people aside and ducking under outstretched arms. If he could just get out the door, thought William Eccles, he would be safe. The Weasel would catch him eventually. He knew that. He couldn't keep running forever, but he didn't want it to happen today. He reached the back door. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw the Weasel several feet away, trapped between two fat drinkers. He'd done it. He'd escaped. He would live to fight another day. He opened the door and sprinted into the cold air of the night, straight into the waiting arms of Scar and Tooth. "Oh, look," said Scar. "It's our friend Eccles." "What a nice coincidence," said Tooth. "You're just the man we're looking for." I have to go," stammered William Eccles. "Don't worry," said Scar. "It's our friend Eccles." "Don't worry," said Scar. "It won't take long." "We'll be quick," said Tooth. And they were right. It didn't take long. A moment later, the Weasel emerged from the pub and strolled down the street to his men, who'd thrown William Eccles against the wall. They held him there. When he saw the Weasel coming towards him, William Eccles started speaking very quickly. "I promise, I'll get the money. I promise. You have to believe me. I'm telling the truth. Please don't hit me." "I'm not going to hit you," said the Weasel. "You're not?" "No." "Oh," William Eccles smiled, then suddenly looked suspicious. "Why not?" "I want some information. If you tell me what I want to know, I'll forget that you owe me." "Forget it? Completely?" "I'll wipe the slate clean." William Eccles grinned. "What do you want to know?" "I'm looking for someone. I think he might be an actor. I want you to tell me who he is and where he is." "If he's an actor, I'll know him. What's his name?" The Weasel started to describe what he knew about Pip. William Eccles interrupted him. "You mean the Bearkeeper's son?" "That's exactly who I mean," said the Weasel. "Sure, I know him. His name's Pip. He'll be in the Globe." "Now? At this time of night?" "That's where he sleeps." William Eccles described precisely where Pip had made his bed, explaining that the Burbage brothers had given Pip a key and allowed him to sleep in the theatre. "Thank you," said the Weasel. He nodded to his men. "Come on." They hurried down the alleyway in the direction of the Globe. William Eccles stood there for a second, watching them go. A big grin slowly spread across his face. He couldn't believe what had just happened. His debts were gone. He was free. He went back into the White Swan, summoned the landlord and ordered a round of drinks for everyone. "Oh no, Pip,"